All right. Well, there's two or three episodes left, it would seem, for Journeys, but I don't really imagine there's too much they could do. That'll change my mind about things at this point. So I'm going to give my review for the series as a whole. And if anything really is important that happens the next few weeks that would really affect this, I'll let you all know. Anyway, let's jump into it. So, Journeys was an interesting series for several reasons. In that universe, it was the first time that Ash wasn't collecting gym badges. He was the champion of a region, and it would seem then, what are they going to have him do? Well, of course, let him go to Galar, right? He's not going to do gym battles because he'll either sweep them or people will get really upset that he's losing gym battles when he's a champion now. So, all right, let's see how they play this out. Well, it turns out what they decided to do was have Ash be a research assistant. Now, Ash isn't the brainy type. So, what that actually meant was each episode they were told, go to this region and find out about this or that. And that's how you would see the Pokemon of the day. And originally, when I saw this, I thought it was pretty cool because if they're not just locked into Galar, it won't be the same boring this time without gyms uh, predicament when you know, okay, they go to the town, the gym is there, then there's some filler. In fact, if they're traveling to all these different regions, it means that we're going to see all of Ash's former traveling companions again. We'll see Serena, the big fan favorite. Like they were telling in Alola, you could see them setting up for this. We'll actually get the conclusion to Lily and Gladion's dad missing, which isn't even resolved with a happy ending in the games. It's one of the saddest things, by the way, in the games, by the way. The dad having amnesia. By the way, yes, spoilers are here. I don't know what is going on with the game developers and writing people off with amnesia. They do it to Looker too for some reason. Luckily, it doesn't happen to him in the anime. He's just forgotten about. With that said, though, it was really exciting. I remember finding out about that right after. No, I think it was right before actually Ash's win. It was sometime around there, but I was thrilled to see this. And of course, if he's going to every region, he's a champion now. It would make sense, especially because they really pushed the whole narrative of Leon as champion in the Gen 8 games. I was like, this is probably going to be when the Elite Four member in Sinnoh, the one with blue hair, glasses, when he was talking about how there's basically a champion league, I was thinking, this is it, champion league. All right, here we go. We are actually going to do what they were teasing about in Sinnoh and pushed off for 4 generations. That's great. Let's do this. Oh, by the way, we'll see all of Ash's past travel Pokemon too, right? Okay. So we go into the first episode, and it was a very good start. I still think the best episode ever was the first one, not just because it was the first, but Ash saving Pikachu, getting that world set up, it was great. Watch it if you haven't for some reason. Um, with this, I thought it was a good start. We saw Pikachu's backstory. He had one. As a Pichu raised by a Kangaskhan, it was good. It was good. Some people were already complaining about the time was that it should have shown Oak catching Pikachu. I didn't think it was the end of the world. They didn't do that. You all know that he ends up with Pikachu. Next episode, we saw Go's backstory and how he wanted to catch Mew. I was actually okay with this as a plot device. I've already given a video talking about how I don't think Go is the worst character ever, and I gave kind of an update about that in my last video about the show in regards to Project Mew. But we do meet this character who wants to catch Mew, and in order to work up to that, he's going to catch every Pokemon. The show was so young back then, Journeys, that I definitely thought was possible, especially with, as you will see coming up, there are episodes like the Bug one, which I'll get to. Here's where there were problems with the series, though, starting with me. The third episode, Ash and Go run into a bunch of Bulbasaur and Ivysaur and Venusaur. Oh, hey, this is the series where they're going to be traveling all over the place. We'll probably see a lot of his old Pokemon too, right? It's not just promoting Galar. So, of course, we'll see Bulbasaur again. Maybe this will be an episode where Bulbasaur finally evolves. No. In fact, he didn't even bring up to Go that he has a Bulbasaur. It was a generic, quite frankly, boring filler. It was not cool, in my opinion. I thought it was a waste of our time, honestly. People in the PokeTuber community who went on to really hate Journeys at this point were okay with that. A friend of mine who grew up watching the show dropped it halfway through Johto, finished that eventually, watched through the last two-thirds of Sinnoh all the way through Kalos, dropped with Alola, who would still hear me out when I was telling him exciting things going on in the franchise. Um, he was forgiving of that too, and I just thought, guys, this doesn't look good. Now, on to the next thing. So the first 9 episodes had promo posters, and they looked beautiful. Among these things, we got things that suggested that Ash would see Ho again, this version of Ash, not the alternate universe one. And oh, by the way, you know how we have people coming back? We heavily implied this Dawn's going to be back as early as episode 8. Episode 8 airs, nope. Just character of the day with the same Pokemon that Dawn has. And that wasn't a coincidence. Don't know what that was about. And then the episode with Ho, it's literally Ash hearing about, from a kid how his grandpa saw Ho-Oh, and isn't that cool? I mean, no, it's really not. You can do much more with Ho-Oh than this. So that was that. So the first year went on. I know I'm not recounting every episode, you guys. I'm very well aware of things. Several health issues affecting it. I am aware, though, that I have a monotone voice, and I'm sure if you are one of the people that actually watch my videos, it can get droning. So I'm trying to keep this at a fast pace and get to the point. Sorry if it feels like I'm dragging things out. So let's go on to what happened next. Within that first year, there were a lot of really high points. Ash befriended a Dragonair, which he caught. When I shared that with my sister, she just dismissed it. She didn't watch Journeys, and she was like, well, Iris already had one. Which is ironic, because 2 years later, my sister forgot that Ash had caught a Dragonite, but whatever. I like Dragonite. She's very compassionate. Probably one of Ash's kindest Pokemon. Not that too many of them are jerks. And she's a powerhouse. Ash then got a Gengar. Kind of makes up for the fact that he didn't really catch Haunter, let alone keep it. It's a fun goofball. Think of it like as the Ghastly Haunter and Gengar that Ash runs into in the Tower of Terror episode. It's also, I just put it this way, all of his Pokemon are strong. Just hit that out of the way. You have Farfetch'd, who he catches. It's a little stuck up. It evolves into a Surfetch'd, and he bonds with Ash through intense training through one of the Kalos Elite Four members, the Night Guy. Fossil Pokemon, he gets the Dracovish. It's very, very hyper, kind of think like Totodile, and it bonds with Surfetch'd the way that we had Gudra, not Gudra, sorry, like how we had Hawlucha and Ash's Bat bonding. So that kind of thing. Oh, and by the way, Ash owns Mimey, and that felt like retconning, and I think it was retconning, but it wasn't retconning when we all thought it was. So when I found out about them, I'm like, oh, they just decided now that no, Mimey was one of Ash's. So a friend of mine who speaks Japanese pointed out how it wasn't as far back as the Kanto days, but I want to say 10 years ago, there was an official Pokemon anime guide that counted Mimey as one of Ash's. Okay, big deal. We never see it, right? So for the first time, it is told by Delia to stay and keep an eye on Ash at the lab. Don't know why it wasn't told to keep an eye on Ash when he was traveling all those other years. But the thing is, we actually get to see a battle. It does pretty good. It's not a part of his team, though, this time. This team proves to be very, very powerful. People have controversial thoughts on it. We'll get to that later. Anyway, that's the highlight with Ash. With Go, it was interesting. So there's one episode where he catches every bug Pokemon in Kanto. And the thought was, okay, it'll be big batches like this. Here's something I should say. He ends up catching all 3 of the stars. They all have personalities. Their personalities all change a little bit when they evolve. He has an issue with his Rabbitfoot. It gets upset because he tells it very gently, I want to catch Mew. That's his original, I want to catch Mew. Then I'll consider catching other Pokemon. And that hurts its feelings, but he ends up adopting it. I forget what happened. I had trouble learning a move or something, and something happened. So then it evolved to the second stage, had a rebellious teenage phase, and Go thought it had left him all around. Then it becomes very upbeat and happy again. We reach this final evolution. He got the water starter. It wanted to look like its final form right away, so when it sees its middle phase, it goes into a depression, it hides in a hole, and in a tree trunk at the lab. And I thought this was very well done. Pokemon never talked seriously about the issue of depression, particularly with a Pokemon. So it did that. And eventually it does evolve. It's very happy with its new form. Great. Then you have Groki, which the only one hasn't evolved. It's very hyper and silly. I'm not a fan of it. I don't know anyone who is. He has other Pokemon that he catches, like a Heracross and a Pinsir, that have a love thing going on. He has a few others that appear a few times. So I will say is the key thing here are his starters, kind of like Ash in Kanto. Pidgeot didn't really have a personality. Butterfree fell in love, and it was kind, but did it really have a personality? I'd argue only Muck had a personality as far as starters go. Everything else was Pikachu and a starter. So it's unfair to say that Go catches so many Pokemon, so none of them have personalities, because all the stars do. And those two bugs are in love. I'm forgetting a few things. Um, let's go on. So that was more or less year one in a nutshell. We were also introduced to Chloe, who's the daughter of the professor that Ash is staying with. At first, I thought she had a good start. There was a companion manga, which is her about in diary entry, her day in the life. She's the first character they introduced who was kind of an Ash companion, and she wasn't interested in Pokemon. Not in the way with May not really liking them, because she was always hearing about them being the son of a daughter of a gym leader, but then she starts to. With Chloe, it's just honest lack of interest. So anyway, it looked like they might show a little bit of a slice of life thing where what's it like to be a kid in the Pokemon world who isn't really that into Pokemon? She literally goes to school. Go does sometimes. And I think at one time Ash appears in one episode. Yeah, it was a show and tell thing. I don't really know how that works. I know that the official weird guide from many years ago for the Pokemon anime said at 10 people can get a job, go to school, get married, and become Pokemon trainers. Don't really get that. But we saw that for the first time. The problem with her was she didn't appear that much. And when she did, we didn't see these charming diary entries of her with her friends. It was just kind of she was on the screen. She was friends with Go, but she was embarrassed for him because he was very self confident. But he didn't get along with other people. Ash is his first friend that he's had since Chloe, with the exception of one kid named Tokyo, who he met on a family vacation when he was younger. Um, so that's who she is. But Ash kind of annoys her, to be honest, and they both annoy her when they get together. So she doesn't appear much, and that's the first year. Second year was interesting. Needless to say, by the way, Team Rocket's in this, and I do think Team Rocket's at their best since Alola. Um, they've been an interesting bunch. You could do a very long video about them, but the thing is with Team Rocket, by the time they got to Sinnoh, they were incredibly annoying. They cut down on the mecha nonsense, which at first was a new upgrade with Johto. The boss fantasies were hilarious. It was interesting at first when they were serious and meant business briefly in Unova, then they weren't. And it was kind of on and off since then. They kind of fell into an in-between stage since then, going all the way through Kalos. But with Alola, they were at their best with Beware and their team, Mimikyu and James' Pokemon, the one that loved him. This time, we get two things. So they have a gotcha machine. A lot of people really hated it. I didn't hate it, but here's my problem with it. I thought the Pelipper was funny, the comedic effect. But if you have a machine with some of the best Pokemon the Team Rocket organization has stolen, a few things here. They really have no business ever losing, and I think that initially was the idea. Why use the same combo of Team Rocket having the same Pokemon throughout the whole series, or in the case of Unova, switching it up once. After that first battle, unless there's intense training, there's no business having them on the screen. It's just annoying. They're going to lose. But if they have very powerful Pokemon, they could be a threat. Well, there's never an episode where they win a battle and briefly get away with someone's Pokemon. Even if it's a multi-parter. If there was going to be a time that they actually catch Pikachu or a character of the day's Pokemon, which, for example, 100J got away with the Absol, it would be now. And anyway, that doesn't happen, unfortunately. Not that I'm rooting for the bad guys per se. But they just end up losing with stronger Pokemon. And you don't care about the Pokemon. I mean, Team Rocket's Pokemon have always been some fan favorites because they're well-developed characters. These Pokemon are not interesting. They fight in a battle and they lose. We'll get to that in a minute. The other thing you need to know is this is a little bit later, but James ends up catching that squirrel that goes into hangry mode. It's just like you would expect from the games. It's comedy effect. I don't really remember if it battled much, and that's really it. Some of the best stuff is coming up when we get to the third and final year, but year two. All right, here we go. let's just get this out of the way. Go ends up catching a Suicune. It's injured, and he saves it. He saves it by catching it. It's too weak to fight back, and there was controversy. People felt, Go is an upstart. Why give him a legendary Pokemon? He's got no business having one, and it's a legendary Pokemon. So as my sister, who didn't like the idea of Go because of Project Mew, um, has pointed out, legendary Pokemon have jobs. They do things, keep the universe in balance. Suicune cleans the water. That's important. How's he going to do it at the lab? He's just going to sulk around all day? The answer the writers gave to it was, it belongs to Go. It's in his Pokedex, but it's allowed to have free range. It's like from the episode, the end of the episode where he catches it, it runs off, not run away, but it's doing its stuff. It comes back when they need help. There's an episode where a lot of chaos happens because of Team Rocket, and it's able to clean the water and everything gets better. Great. So that's how the writers decide to solve it. They do have the obligatory episode where Ash and Go take down Eternatus, um, and they both technically catch it, but the writers don't really refer to it ever as one of Ash's Pokemon or talk too much about how technically Go owns it too. I guess if it's division, Ash seemed okay with Go being the one to say he had it, but it's immediately sealed away in a lab. So forget about that obligatory game to anime episode that seemed to inconvenience the writers. We never see it again until the end of the series. And it's not at all implied that it really belongs to anyone, really. It feels like the writers treat this as a thing as, yes, there was a Pokeball, but like the Ultra Beasts, um, when the group caught an Ultra Beast in Alola, it wasn't considered a Pokemon that they owned particularly. It was just kind of sent off, and they used the ball to do it. That was Eternatus here. This was also the year when COVID hit, so Pokemon was taken off the air for a few months, and we would find out in year 3 that this had major, major repercussions. How about Ash? How about that championship I was talking about? Well, he finds out that what they have is two things. First of all, by the way, they try to push the whole thing about um, groups working as a team to catch Pokemon. So raids, like you see in Pokemon Go, kind of like how you see when you battle Titan Pokemon in Sword and Shield. Wanting to promote both. I mean, like look at the name of Go, for example. We see that early on with a Lugia, for example. No one succeeds. Oh well. The other thing they try to push though is the whole walking around in real life thing, and maybe even the whole idea of the um, outer world, in Sword and Shield, the overworld. The idea of walking around in free range stuff. So if Ash isn't going to gyms, he's going to battle other people. And if they declare it, a Rotom referee comes up and records the battle and the results, and Ash will go up several ranks. All right, so how does that play out? Well, being a champion doesn't give you a head start. Now, for plot reasons, all the other people who Ash will battle, when we find out about them, they're already very high up there. But Ash has just started, so he's somewhere in the tens of thousands. Don't worry, he doesn't battle 10,000 people, at least on screen. We do see when he wins a battle, even the first one, it brings him up thousands of ranks. So they're obviously also going by finesse, style, maybe how close it was. They don't really explain. Some of the rivals were more interesting than others, um, to be honest with you. Um, the first one I can remember is he battled an underling of Lieutenant Surge. Well, Ash beat Surge years ago. The idea that he would lose to one of Surge's underlings is insulting. So we knew either they would insult us like this, or he would win. And sure enough, he ends up winning this battle. He ends up battling some rich, slicked up hair kid. This is where we see Mimey, for the first time, really battle. We get a lot of lackluster, forgettable rivals, honestly. Here's where characters start returning, though. But we do get Karina, and it's a very good battle. Not as bad as the original gym battle between them. Um, I forget the name of the girl, but the fighting type gym leader um, in Sword and Shield. I thought this was one of the most interesting rivalries Ash ever had. So Ash battles to her and loses. Then he has his rematch. He's going to win, right? No, it's a tie. At least he didn't lose again. She isn't the first person he's battled where it took 3 attempts for him to win. But that's technically still win-win, lose-lose, tie-tie. Because he was the last one to win, the writers treated like, well, that's it. He's overcome her. But he runs into her again. She actually asks like almost like a comedy if I tell you want to battle me again. So I mean, that's what a lot of that was. He ends up battling Volkner again. It was a good battle. The battles get better throughout the series. Um, I don't remember liking it as much though as the original battle against him in the gyms. And basically, Ash rises through the ranks. Um, there are some filler that are better than others. Nothing gets as bad as the Johto filler they had after the first third of Johto aired. Some of the ones that stood out to me was they encounter some prehistoric Pokemon in a park. Go catches an Aerodactyl. That's a nice entry. He bonds with it too. So again, so much for him not caring about his Pokemon. It was really well done, is what I'm getting at. Or them not having personalities. There are plenty of others. One of the ones that I'm not going to go through each and every single one, guys, but here are two that I'll bring up that stand out. One is one of the most hated episodes, and I actually thought it was fine. But when I brought up Ash has a Lucario. And yes, the aura they were talking about in the eighth movie, that's a thing. Just like how it was brought up again in Sinnoh when he ran into a Riolu. Um, by the way, people say that Ash Greninja was retconned because Greninja appears later on in the third year and trains Lucario. I think honestly with the animation they forgot and they were lazy, but they never said there was no Ash Greninja at one point, even though the flashback didn't show it like that. What they're heavily implying here is what was going on with Ash Greninja was Ash having aura and that affecting Greninja instead of just being some mysterious spawned phenomenon, which goes back to other times that Ash has, used aura. So he's able to do that with his Lucario. Now, when he gets Lucario, it's an egg and it evolves into a Riolu. And he uses it a lot. They're doing that because they want to show a baby Pokemon to keep viewers that are younger. And he wants to see some kind of growth with one of his Pokemon. And anyway, he keeps on using it a lot until it evolves into Lucario. And at one point, Pikachu gets jealous. And he runs away, and Mommy has to call it back. And people were saying, oh, what a stupid episode. Pikachu would never do that. Here's the thing. Think of it this way. If you have a child, your child doesn't necessarily hate you, but maybe you have a really big fight and they run away. It's not really planned out. It's not something that they have a plan and they're going to go here. And, it's a spur of the moment thing. So that's what happens with that episode. I thought it was fine. Here are some episodes I thought were terrible, though, like zero. Zero. There were a few times they were lazy, quite frankly. And something that came up in the third year, which I'll get to in a minute. I think they were just being lazy in many ways, though. They made some very bad fillers that you'd have in the 20-minute time slot, 2 episodes, so one before the break, one after. And some of them were just so silly. The worst being the one where there's a bunch of marsh tomps and they're stuck in the ground and the boys find a way to get them out, with water. Someone uses rain dance or something. That's the plot. Worst episode ever in the franchise, honestly. Oh, and some of them end up, sticking out of the ground again. Oh boy, that's fun. Some weird, stupid contest with a reference to somebody you would only know if you're from Japan. Some live action game show guy or something. Which is fine, but, I feel like back in the days when, and I liked this a lot, when Kanto made very known this is a show that's based in alternate universe Japan, I thought that was fine. But the issue that I've got with this, though, is I really just felt that it's been so long that's been advertised as an international show, especially with them being in different regions. It's just really weird to make a reference to a Japanese celebrity from real life when this is an international franchise and people aren't going to get the joke. Um, so, there's that. They do introduce, by the way, I'm just looking at the episode guide here on Bulbapedia. They do introduce everything that you would expect to know about, like Gigantamax and things like that. So, anyway, those kinds of episodes really were terrible. I do think that, in regards to the rivalry with Leon, this is the best relationship Ash has had with a champion right after Cynthia. I'm sorry, right before Cynthia. It's very clear that Ash aspires to beat this guy. He has a, light battle with him. Of course he loses. And the whole story is Ash, yes, wanting to become the champion, but specifically focused on Leon. So, I definitely thought that was interesting. Just looking at the guide here real quick. Um, Oh yeah, as far as those really bad half episodes, they had one when Ash and Go were rapping whenever a shelter landed on its head, and if you think that is bad, yeah, it's as bad as you would think. It's just not good. Um, Around this time, we have seen him go to different regions. Now, here's one of the problems with the series: Galar gets heavily neglected. I thought it should have been a thing where half the time they were at Galar, they showed all the Pokemon, all the gym leaders. Even if Ash doesn't battle them, maybe somebody else does. We see an aspiring trainer who jumps in every time Ash is at a gym. Then maybe Ash mentors or something. Um, Kanto was the majority of episodes, and it was usually very lazy. Not here's the factory you'll find Zapdos in. It was generic. This is a place in Kanto, maybe this town. I don't know why they couldn't have done that with Galar. Maybe it would have had more people saying, "Well, what about it? What are you showing from the games?" Galar came in second place. Kalos and Lola very low, but not often. Here's one of the strong things: when they did go to different places, depending on where it was celebrated in certain ways. Ash was always revered and loved when he came back to Alola, which he did twice. It was a great episode. Most people who watched Journeys probably had watched, even if they're very young, they had probably watched Alola because it'd come out not too long ago. And they bring things up again, like Lily's missing dad. But there, you always saw that Ash's old Pokemon from there. It felt like a continuation of Alola, which is a thing they should have done with more characters, with more stories. There's no reason during these 3 years we didn't see more of Ash's traveling companions with their goals updated, which they did very well with Alola. Everyone's one step closer to a goal. I mean, Sophocles isn't a fan favorite, but he had an episode where he's an intern now, launching rockets into space. We actually have someone reaching a goal, getting closer. I thought that was good. You had the obligatory episodes where the two dogs, Sword and Shield. It's just like the game, so didn't feel very inspired. Um, let's talk about this. As far as encountering old Pokemon, they're legendaries. Um, we see Mewtwo. It's not a different Mewtwo like from Unova. It's the original one from the first movie and Mewtwo Returns. Basically, he's kind of a grump grump. Never going to be a very light-hearted Pokemon, but he's not obviously a threat to humanity anymore. Ash wants to battle it just because he wants to battle it. He gets pwned, which is kind of weird because, yes, they want to make clear that the top legendary Pokemon are still very powerful and that you can't touch this, you know? I just love for someone who was usually on a winning streak in this and had been a champion. They would have had Ash be able to do a little bit more of a fight. Go wants to catch Mewtwo. They both fail miserably. As far as Go catching things, another legendary that they really heavily teased was him getting Zapdos. This is the first time it really looked like he could have caught in a legendary, and I thought he should have. It was a very well done battle, and it felt like he had earned that. It just felt like they weren't quite ready to say, you can get this. And I'm just thinking, well, are we going to see him battle Zapdos again? Because if not, this episode was a waste of our time. We already saw it appear in a very impressive way in the second movie. Not so impressive episode, later in Johto, where it's thrown into the water like Mewtwo, and Mewtwo returns to recover. Um, Chloe gets an Eevee. Um, Eevee can't decide what evolution it wants to evolve into. It's heavily suggested in the writing that none of these they'd explore them, but it would be a surprise Gen 9 Pokemon by the end of the series. She doesn't know what to do with her life either. They did stuff with this early on with May, for example, or trainers who never got anywhere with their goals, like, Misty until she stopped traveling with Ash, or Brock before he stopped traveling with Ash. Like I said in another video, I'm rushing over this because I've said this a lot in the last few videos about this. Aside from the Poke Girls, Ash's friends never seem to get anywhere towards their goals until they're off screen because the writers are being lazy. They could have used the last 3 years to show all of his friends getting close to their goals. One thing I will get out of the way is just all the way down. We have 3 episodes left, and this will affect my final thoughts on Chloe and Eevee, but Eevee does not evolve into a Gen 9 Eevee. Up with 3 episodes left, Chloe still doesn't know what she wants to do. They don't show any day in the life things of her as a high schooler, middle schooler, whatever she's, elementary schooler. It felt like a waste of time a lot. There were more delightful episodes, like the one called The Tale of You in Lumiose Maze Forest with her and Eevee. It was touching. Don't hate the characters, but I feel like they wasted our time. Um, Her father, the professor, was fine. Didn't really have much of a personality. He had 2 companions. Each had one episode that was kind of interesting. The one episode that's called Memories of a Warming Kindness / Love is Kodak is about her love a Psyduck. You think it's about a young man when she's younger. It was a nice episode. Otherwise, she never brings anything to the series. Her male companion's the same thing. He had an interesting episode, though, where he discovers a radio show, which I'll bring up right now. So I said Team Rocket was at their best, at least second place to Alola. The other thing that made them interesting was they finally get a base, which they've been looking for. I mean, they've been looking for a base since Gen 3. That was their whole thing in Hone. We want to make a base and catch our Pikachu. They never succeed. They actually do in this one, and they don't make a big deal out of it either, honestly. Just, as far as the organization's going, they're back to their post Unova Giovanni. We see the girl that Jesse always refers to as a Kappa. They don't really do anything big. The last thing they really did as an organization that was big was in Alola. Giovanni barely ever appears, I think once. That's about it. But they do an episode where, in real life, in 2010, when it was clear that Team Rocket was going to be more serious and then not appear in every episode, which thankfully they've continued, the voice actors for the trio were like, well, look, they're comedy characters, and we're used to being on every week. We got to fill the gap. So they made a radio show, and it's very comic relief. They bring that to this. In the story, they make a radio show, and it touches the hearts of a lot of people. It's interesting because they don't know that's Team Rocket doing it. And there are a few characters, including, for example, Dent, who talk about their hopes and dreams. The professor, who was Chloe's father, this is one of his strongest moments. He talks about the difficulties of being a father. It was a very well done episode. A lot of people liked it. You kind of have to have no feelings if you didn't like it. We do see Ash later on. So we're reaching year 3 here. We see Ash climbing the ranks, and he battles people who we care about, old friends of his who have gone on to become very successful. Here's the big one, Iris. She's a champion now, the champion of Unova. They battle. It's pretty good. I think Dracofish and Servatch, particularly Dracofish, really shined in this. Also, we do see other traveling companions return again. So we see Citron and Eureka from Kalos. And they're helping train Ash because Ash is going up against an Elite Four member, from the Kalos region, that being Drasna. So here's what I'm getting at. He's defeating Elite Four members and champions now. These are the kinds of people who Ash, is fighting nowadays. So finally we get to him being close to the top 8. You find out that there's a master's class, 8 toughest people out there. To get there, though, he has to get through one more person, Rayhan, so the 8th gym leader, strongest gym leader in Galar, and he is also very, very focused on winning the championship, at least getting into the top 8, and battling, battling Leon, being the strongest in the world. So Ash is right up there next to this guy. So, okay, what does that mean practically, though, as far as, telling a story? Well, it's a close battle. It's very, very good. Rayhan loses, and before Ash starts the Master's 8, there's some very noteworthy episodes I thought were very good. So I brought up finishing stories with past characters. Lily's family finds their dad. Very touching episode. Watch it. If you couldn't be bothered to watch anything from this series, watch that episode. It was very well done, very touching. We also see Ash battling in a wrestling championship, Pokemon wrestling, in Alola. Again, he's adored in this region. People start calling out to him, Champion, Champion. And it was just very touching, a nice send-off from his, buddies going into the future. One more person I'll bring up before bringing up stuff about the Masters 8. We actually get to see... Paul again, who I thought was one of the strongest returns. So what do they do with Paul? Well, Paul isn't a jerk anymore. That's nice. And on top of that, he's a gym leader. I do agree with people that say, no, they should have... So I do know some people have said the idea of Paul returning was dumb because he didn't become a Frontier Brain, because that means he didn't defeat Brandon, which was the one blot on his record. I think it's fine that he was gym leader. They should have done Frontier Brain. With that said, though, it would make sense. There's 8, with him being the 8th one, instead of just the awkward 7 compared to the 8 gym leaders. Fine. Some other people didn't like how supposedly Paul just showed up at the professor who hosts Ash at his lab. I'm sorry, no, it was Oak's lab. That was the whole point of the episode. Sorry about that. So yeah, Ash gets a call. Paul is at Oak's lab. Well, come to Oak's lab, and turns out Paul's there. That was meant to be a surprise because the reason Paul is there, as he explains, he wants to help Ash. He wants to make it so if Ash is going to battle, he's ready. Now, here's the thing. In real life, around March of 2022, there was a leaker from Hong Kong who started leaking different things. And two other people related to him started doing that. And he had 100% accuracy. The one thing he said that didn't turn out to be true, that I think what might have happened was he leaked it, but it was so far out that the writers decided to change it. Or there was a genuine mistake, or this is one thing he was just wrong about or lied about. Keep in mind, everything else he was always on about, spoiler wise, all the way up until the Masters 8. So all the content from March through June. That's a lot, like 16 episodes. So he gives these leaks, and one of the things he says, Paul says, is, look, Ash, you're good, but if you're actually going to win the Masters 8, um, you're going to have to, bring your A team. And everyone thought, oh, this is great. He's going to call on all of his reserves. Here's the thing, that is a little unfair to his current team. In Kanto, it was his Kanto team. It was a mix with Johto, but he didn't have as many back then. It was all Hoenn, all the way through the Hoenn League. Battle Frontier, if you treat it differently. Same with the Sinnoh League, with the extent of some Johto Pokemon because they were promoting new games. Same with Unova, same with Kalos, same with Alola. Why should it be different for Galar, even if it is the stakes of becoming a champion? It's with this current team that he's beaten those Elite Four members and those champions. I might be the only person who thought of it that way. So I wouldn't have been upset seeing some of his returning best, but what would that say about his current strength? Can a real champion use his current team and win? I think that's pretty good. And also, it's unfair to these Pokemon that did all this heavy lifting for him. So what ends up happening is we end up having Paul pretty much but give the inspiration to Ash to tell his Pokemon, hey, here's what you should do. All of you, so flying types should work with, a flying type, or water with a water. Gengar ends up working with the fire types because he learns Will-O-Wisp, a fire move, and all of his current Pokemon, except Pikachu, learn a special move from a type, a type group of all of Ash's Pokemon. So that, in a way, this is all their victory because they all contributed, not to get him to where he is today, but what he, has been doing with this current team. I thought that was well done, to be fair. Okay, now, good episode for Paul. Also, let's get on to this. Gary returns, and it's interesting because he ran off into the sunset at the end of Sinnoh as a professor. He makes an appearance again. The end of Johto. We see him again, coming again at the very end of Hoenn after the Battle Frontier, kind of putting Ash in his place. I think that's the most controversial battle ever, more than the Snivy trip episode. I'll talk about it again some other time. I didn't think that was a good way to end the series, especially after just defeating Brandon. Honestly, guys. Then we saw him again in Sinnoh because everyone reappeared in Sinnoh. It was an incredible series, guys. We haven't seen him again. We do see him referenced at the end of Unova as one of his Ash's past rivals. What's he doing now? Do we see an episode with him doing research? Let's be honest, guys. People don't watch Pokemon to see someone in a lab studying stuff. That might not have been too exciting. All right. So what do we get? Is he going to be? Are they going to dumb him down, retcon him, make him a jerk again towards Ash? No. Oh, what are they going to do with him? So let's introduce Project Mew. The writers made a mistake. I've said this already in another video. Go should have been introduced as an experienced trainer who had every Pokemon from every region except Galar. That would have given time to show all of the Galarian Pokemon, give them an episode. And from there, he should have already had a few legendaries under his belt too. In fact, they should have teased him about him as far back as Alola when they were planning this series. It would have been more believable. People didn't feel like he was worthy of catching every Pokemon working up to Mew. They didn't think it was interesting. Don't try to shove all this into one episode. They need to do something with Mew. So they decide instead Go's going to catch Mew by going through a competition. And then they retcon that to he wants to see Mew. He'll do it through going through a competition. So he does this, and on the way we get to meet people like an old friend that he had, one of his only friends growing up, this boy named Tokyo, who wants to, I think for him too, they also say catch Celebi, but then it's see Celebi again. And it's a very touching episode, again, one of the best ones. And then after that, we end up getting an episode where Go meets Gary, and Gary's recurring. Gary's jerk towards Go. They retcon this. There's nothing to indicate this originally. The original series, it seems, Go is just spoiled brat who teases Ash, cuz. And then they kind of explain, well, no, it was because of the fishing with the Pokeball that broke. Fine. With this, they go out of their way to make it clear, oh no, Gary only gives his rivals a hard time because he believes in them. He thinks that's going to help them do better, which flies in the face of having nice companions all the time with the games, since the third generation games. And pretty much that being the case since then, with the exception of Trip at first. So anyway, that's pretty much what's going on with that. We have some other characters, the angsty guy, the really nice older girl. They're not that interesting, honestly. Their design kind of reminded me of something from Digimon. I'm really tired of the trope of the edgy, emo. I mean, I'm thinking of like Alon, Sasuke, so many other people. And it's just, again, generic, but what's so special about you nice characters? They didn't bring much. There was a professor who was leading it. Reminds me of the generic professor they throw in for Pokemon Go. He's doing Project Mew. Kind of looked like a villain. That's what people thought the plot twist was going to be. So he would trick all these people into weakening Mew for it. That doesn't happen. He's just kind of there. Day by day stuff, honestly, it was fine. It was fine. The thing that would happen is it would be something like we have a specific task for you involving this Pokemon. So catch this Pokemon with this item. Ash would go with Go, and they would do it. It was basically a field trip adventure episode, which I think would be better than the average filler. I just wish they didn't show so many generic Pokemon we already saw and given Galarian Pokemon more of a chance to shine. That's the issue. I think it did a lot for Go's development. One thing I didn't even bring up in his videos was it made him grow as a person, not only become more sociable, but realizing he's not the best at everything. He really struggles at some points, and Gary also isn't the best on a team, but Gary kind of learns faster. Go, it's more of a struggle. Go screws up their adventure at one point during one of their trials. They're fighting the two new Reggies. Oh, at one point also, there's an episode where Gary and Ash and Go end up at Oak's lab because Infernape ran off because it's a fire type, and now all of a sudden it really, really cares about being really strong, so it goes to fight Moltres. Go doesn't get the Moltres, another missed opportunity. And, Gary lectures him about things he did that weren't so smart in teamwork. By the time we get to the finale Project Mew, I already did a whole episode about that, a whole video. Long story short, Go gets to meet Mew, and they're disbanded. We also saw growth with Go's friend Tokyo. He's really shy, reserved. Also learns how to work on a team a little better because he's so shy and reserved. And Gary finally shows respect towards Go. I mean, it was fine. Just kind of annoying the explanation they gave for why Gary can be the way he can be. They don't really explain why he wants to be on Project Mew. I guess just being a professor, this is a unique opportunity to get more field work in and see Mew, learn about it. But they don't point that out, which is interesting. All right, it feels like they wanted to bring up an old rival again and bring him back to the show. Fine. Now, let's get to another character who returns that is a fan favorite. We get to see Serena come back. It wasn't handled the best way it could have been. This is one of the first times we see Chloe really hang out with it's usually another girl, and really grow as far as, getting closer to her Eevee goal and trying different things out. I think this is the one where they finally are like, yeah, look at all these adventures we've done. Serena battles. She gets another traveling companion rival who isn't with her during the Masters 8 when she's watching Ash. Somebody else is, that being May. Okay. I'm sorry, actually, no, I think the girl's to the side. So this idea that she's going to be having a buddy now and she's traveling. Wallace ends up taking up all of Ash's time. Off screen, Ash defeats a champion rank, but not current champion kind of person. That was silly, and he does it very easily. That was strange. And by the time we have Serena running into Ash, they're both leaving. At least they get to talk. So many people were just happy with that scene in general. I was too. And with the cool coolness of how this leaker guy was out and this information was correct. I think a lot of us were forgiving. I still am because I thought it was a good scene. The episode wasn't completely bad. Obviously, we wanted a second kiss. We're not going to get that, guys. If it ever happens, ever, it'll be like a quick flash forward in the future. Maybe just Ash holding her hands. People got so invested with Serena as Mrs. Ketchum, to the detriment of appreciating her as her own character for a lot of people. And it's like, look, they're not going to have a romance on Pokemon. So that's how they decided to handle that. It would be too awkward for Ash and Serena to be around each other for a whole episode. Fans want her back. She's a fan favorite. How do we handle this? That's how they did it. So that's that with her. Now, moving on, you're probably thinking, okay, well, anybody else? Traveling companions. Yes, one more. Dawn appears several times again. Most recently in the Masters 8 and an Amazon Prime exclusive. First time Pokemon's done that. Arceus episode. Arceus barely appears. They just kind of save I think it's called a Volcanrola or something like that. It's not a very exciting episode. It's 4 parts. What was more exciting was Cynthia appeared. And the reason it's a big deal is this. Cynthia's not the only champion that we've seen, um, more than once, but she appeared again in Unova, was very important, the first important champion in a story when we had Sinnoh, and she appears several times in this series, and that leads to her being more exciting and something you want to care about more in the Masters 8. Two more things I want to get into before bring up a few more specific episodes, and from there, bring us up to current events. So one thing is they started having episodes around year 3 where there were clip shows. And a lot of them weren't even exciting. There are TV shows that actually have a plot for a clip show, and they're interesting. And then you have the flashbacks, and it can be done well, especially if they're really big highlights that people like. But honestly, at the end of the day, oh, by the way, just checking these episodes again, Ash battles Citron again. That was fun. But anyway, we end up having the situation where these are pretty bad clip shows, and they're literally just a narrator talking and showing these things. And you had things like 2 Masters 8 clip shows in the middle of the Masters 8. You had one that talked about Project Mew, I believe. Again, why during the Masters 8? You had one talking about Chloe's adventures, which nobody was excited about, honestly. So there's that. Um, After that, something else I should bring up real quick is I started following PokeTubers at the beginning of Unova, so I found videos from the Insane Game Freak, who's still active, and his videos, my videos now, I know they're low quality. They're not flashy. They're kind of like how his are, a guy talking into a video. What I will say is he's more funny and entertaining than me. I don't know if he has to use scripts. I don't. That's one of my big problems. I had to get these videos out there. Anyway, by the time I got to Kalos, I found other people. I found KG Prestige. I found the Chornik. I found Tyron the God 3. I found Dean95. All 4 of them I found very interesting. When the Pokepod was created, I followed them onto there. There's another one that I like too a lot, Pokemon Champions. Those are 2 very good podcasts in my opinion. I've had issues with the Pokepod. I don't want to really get too much into that, but I followed them a lot. And by the time we got to this current series, initially I was still following them a lot. But this was definitely an issue where a lot of people who didn't like... I will say this, if Journeys isn't the most disliked series, it's the most polarizing. People who don't like it have been very open about it, and I would hear about that a lot. Just a lot of people who would come up and say they weren't big fans. Um, there are 3 other Pokemon tubers that... PokeTubers who came up that I want to bring up, because this was part of my experience during these 3 years. A lot of it was off-camera stuff, not even the show, but the fandom. And I don't get involved with fandom. I'm actually on Twitter and following people because of it. Elon Musk stuff aside. So 3 people I should really shout out to. Charu Charu, Charushharu, dude from Japan named Charles. I love his videos. He's very loving towards the series. He does very good character analytics. And I like his humor. He's very laid back but funny. And I like how he brings up stuff about his own life at the end of some videos. Watch his stuff. Another one is Professor Alex Silver. He does bring up current things when it's happening sometimes, but he basically focuses on the Pokemon of a character going all the way back to Kanto, and timeline wise, it jumps around, which is fun. The other one is there is there's a group that called Degra, Degra on YouTube. They also have Patreon. It's a couple, and they are watching the Pokemon dub from the beginning. I think they have plans to go all the way through now, but they watch an episode a week, so you're always going to never actually catch up. And it's a long way to go. They're struggling through the Johto fillers right now. I'd be surprised if they continue past it. We'll see. Watch all of the people I brought up. They're very good. Now, with that said, another thing happened with the Rockets this year. Butch and Cassidy were written off. They actually have happy endings. They live in quiet lives having left Team Rocket. It seemed so simple that people were making references to the South Park special where, Kyle accused Cartman of, for 40 years pretending he's Jewish just to really get at him. And people were joking about that being the thing with Butch and Cassidy. No, they actually did retire. Jesse and James almost retire too. James basically does for like half the episode have a happy ending. Things go wrong. They're still the trio, still together. But also Meowsy was brought up in the episode. There was a Meowsy-like looking Meowth. So again, kind of, past character coming back. By the way, while making this video, I've also in the background been trying to find a real comprehensive list of all the past recurring characters. I'm very certain that I've forgotten one or two people, and unfortunately, that's the best we can do right now. Not going to add a second part. Let's get on then to the final part of this video. The Master's 8. Alright, here we go. I started making videos about starting with the Master's 8, and everything I talked about, I've already talked about. So, brief overview. Tons of episodes. So, it started in June. Tons of weeks that were used up with clip shows or just no episode. Sometimes you even have 2 weeks of no episodes and a clip show. As far as the Master's Day itself, when it actually aired, by the way, my favorite PokeTuber, didn't bring up in this video, I brought up before. Look up Lumiose Trainer Zach. I started following him when he did a review about the Alola League and then the past leagues. He had a lot of content at that point. It was really fun to binge. And he decided to, week by week, rate each episode of Journeys. He's been a delight to follow. I think he's fair. I agree with him a lot more than I disagree, but I don't always. That's fine. Anyway, it's something that he brings up a lot in his videos, but the problem with the Masters 8 itself is this. I felt like they treated it like a Pokemon League instead of the 8 strongest trainers. Long story short, Leon demolishes Alon. I get what they're doing. They're trying to say, isn't Leon untouchable? Well, that's a problem moving forward, because Ash was supposed to defeat Leon. That's what the writers were going for. That's why it was so close. But the top corporate said the 11:30th hour, no, you can't. He's going to lose this. So just, originally he was supposed to win Kanto. It was supposed to be a 1-year show. You see each Pokemon. He wins the league. Little boy who loves his Pokemon is able to, against the odds, do all this. Then Mewtwo strikes back with the flash forward of him married to Misty with a kid. Popularity, especially after people demand Pokemon coming back after the Porygon episode, changed that. Sinnoh, they were inching towards it. That's where they brought up the Champion League. Corporate said no. Kalos, it was very close. And a no. So we finally had this thing where they met them halfway. He wins Alola. Doesn't mean the goal is over. So anyway, fine. What we have next is this. He gets to the Masters 8 tournament, and round 2, we end up seeing Diantha versus Lance. A friend of mine who doesn't watch anymore predicted that Leon would win. Diantha won. It wasn't the best episode, battle-wise, but it was better than the first one, and I liked how she won. It made so this wouldn't be too predictable. And I did like that she used some interesting game tactics. Next, we had Iris versus Cynthia. This was actually a pretty decent battle. I didn't really like it that much, though. If you see in my posts on UPN Network, I go by the name AK2 there. I was harder on it than most people. Didn't think it was bad, but I didn't think it was great. It showed that Cynthia's boss, though, kind of untouchable. So finally, we end up with the final part of the first round. Ash beats Steven. This was the first battle that I thought was very good. Like, I'd put it up there with some of his best gym battles, some of his best league battles. Not top 10 for any of those, maybe even 15, but it was good. I enjoyed it. Then we got a filler episode where they try to find a little girl. This was after weeks off on a clip show. I think there was another clip show after that. That was most of the episode. It was the Axe who gets lost at the festival / Fire and Ice episode of Kanto, where half the episode they're just wandering around. Not cool, guys. Really not cool. Diantha gets demolished. Maybe the only reason they really had was they didn't want to expose Leon anymore in a third battle and have him show all of his cards. Ash versus Cynthia was very good. Easily on the top 15, I'd argue even top 10 battles ever. I don't know if I could say it's the second best or third. I'd say top 5 easily. I'm interested in hearing people's thoughts about that. Sorry, just making sure my battery doesn't die here. It was very good, though. It's a very close battle, one of the closest battles Ash ever had, and it was up to that point. Both Pokemon had fallen down. It looked like both had fainted. Lucario stands up. I kind of thought, okay, at that point they can't justify Ash beating Leon, especially with his current team. It was so close. Plus, Leon is seeing Ash's hand. So Ash always does different tactics where he thinks of new ideas and he learns from his rivals. Leon does the same thing. He even says that's what he does. He learns from battles. So Ash versus Leon happens. I was nervous. I didn't really think it would be great compared to Ash versus Cynthia because of the things that were brought up. Turns out to be an incredible battle. I talked about it. You can find my thoughts on it. But the good is all of his past friends. We even see cameos from Todd and Professor Rose and his companion on the street. But all of his past companions see him. Pikachu sees all of Ash's past Pokemon, inspire him to get up. People complained that we should have had all the humans cheering for Ash in the stands. And in the preview, it shows Charizard and Krokorok with Oak in the audience, suggesting that that was the original plan. Ends up being changed. Maybe they threw us off on purpose. Who knows? But here's the point I brought up with people. Well, if you were going to have everyone, you'd have to have everyone walk in, have all the greetings happen, see up to like 15 different people, right? See all of these people giving their comments and their thoughts. And you can do that. Like, look at really any anime that's a tournament arc. You Hakusho, most recently Dragon Ball Super. Many of them do this. But they're a whole season. I think maybe this could have and should have been much longer. But due to real life reasons I'll get to in a minute, it didn't happen. So if this is going to be 4 parts, there isn't time to do that. And you don't want to take any more away from the beautiful stuff that happens in the final episode of this battle and the battle itself, because it is the best battle. It's the best battle ever, and part 4 of this battle is the best Pokemon episode ever, period. Now, finally, there were real life issues talked about before. Partly COVID, partly much of the staff being laid off, and some of the more experienced writers leaving due to a combination of both. The show had not only some bad fillers, but it explains why they happened. Bad, poorly written. Basically, you didn't have to think to make an episode. When they put 2 shorts into one episode, you had the clip episodes, you had weeks off. They were understaffed, and that's the best they could do. It's unfortunate. It affected a lot of things, like how long the league could have been, other things they could have done. But Ash wins. He's champion. Now bring us more up to date. Go Saw Mew. Project Mew is disbanded. We don't know what he's going to do now. And the next episode, we see Ash, Go, and Chloe chit-chatting about their futures. And the reason I made the episode tonight was because even if they have a beautiful send-off, even if everyone knows what they want to do, I'll definitely make a video about it. I don't think it's enough to actually change what I think about this. The only thing left that they could do was, if they wanted to, if this is going to be the end of the series, is disband Team Rocket as an organization. It's still a powerful message that's out there, and think about that, you guys. Aside from when he got very injured with the Meloetta confrontation, Giovanni has always been strong and firmly in control. He still has a massive military of OP Pokemon. He's the only organization, his group is the only one that has been taken down. It's still a real threat, and when they do show up, when they actually are utilized, like in Unova or Alola, they show, it's not just an old time you think from the Kando and Johto episodes, they're still a real threat. And um, unfortunately, because I think Team Rocket as a trio aren't going to have a story as interesting or fun as they've had in this one, let alone Alola, if they come back again. I just can't think of what they'll do with them. So, the future is, like I said, I think everyone should be put out to pasture. Um, I guess two last things I'll say is people have been talking about the 1 minute episodes where they see one of the new starters as, oh, this is the beginning of the Paldean anime. It's not. They're each week showcasing one of the new Paldean Pokemon because they want to boost money for the games. And their trio is, they have a comedic effect, so that's what they're being utilized for. So with that said, it's just not um, that isn't the same thing as having a Paldean anime. Do I think they should? No. I think what they should do for the next 3 years is every month have like a 10 to 20 minute special where they have a made for that special trainer. One, it could be the same one, but one who goes after the Titan Pokemon, one who does the badge, quest, one who ends up um, taking down the bases of Team Star. I think that's what they should do. Doesn't mean they will. Where would that leave this ominous, massive villain organization? I couldn't really tell you. They could continue things without Ash in the same universe, have the trio harassing some other poor trainer, maybe not. They could have Ash stay in there. I don't know what would be going through the Rocket Trio's mind. Not that they're that bright, thinking they're going to be able to overpower the champion of the Pokemon world and take his Pikachu. I don't really know. So, I mean, with that said, that leaves us finally to ranking. It's really hard. It's had some powerful moments. Like I said, it's very weird how they skew it. So I tend to agree with Lumio's trainer Zach, and I watched a video where he in 5 episodes or less or 10 reviewed every Pokemon episode and showed the rating. And this sounds kind of very no life-ish, but maybe he does it very fast, so it didn't take long for me to compile this. I made a list with each region, and it was each region and the amount of times he gave an episode a 10 out of 10. So this region is on track to actually be the one that has the most. All that needs to happen now is we just need one more episode to be a 10 out of 10 because the last episode of Ash versus Leon got an 11 out of 10. It was just that good. And I agree with that rating. It's the best way to show the sentiment of it. That 11, though, is the only reason it's tied right now. And every other region has had ups and downs. And I think 10 out of 10 is necessarily going to be that reflective because you can have a lot of series that have a lot of 9s or 8s. But it gives you an idea of how good a series is. So, with that said, I kind of feel like this is similar to what I gave the new Pokemon games that came out recently, Scarlet and Violet. Well, specifically Scarlet, because that's the one I played. And I ended up giving the games a 5.5. I feel like for this series, I kind of want to, but I might bump it up to a 6. So let's get the bad out of the way. It's not their fault, but the fact is, they did set up a series where every week, like 49 out of 52 of the year, you had an episode. Then you have all these weeks off and clip episodes. It's not fair, but it's just like how it's not fair to Game Freak that they were forced to make these games early by Nintendo, the new ones, and with all the glitches and problems. At the end of the day, they still gave the green light to release these episodes to the public. These were some bad episodes. Like I said, the ones where it's 2 episodes in one. First episode that I ever saw someone give like a 0 or something. I think Zach did that. I mean, I know I did. It was the worst episode. So the worst episode in the franchise is in it. There's a lot of bad short fillers. We should have had more time in Galar. I still don't know if every Galar Pokemon appeared, like even in the audience during the championship. I think they met that goal. I know they tried to. Every Pokemon should have had an episode about it. There was no reason to lazily use other regions as a generic thing. The only difference is maybe this region looks more like this region. The only episodes they really showed to represent was Alola. Each time Ash went to Alola, those two times, they really celebrated that. They were just so generic and lazy with this, and it was always just like, oh yeah, somewhere in Kanto. Okay, nothing about this is showing something unique about it. Um, I have to take off points for that. We should have seen a lot more of Ash's companions come back and get their own episodes. There's no reason we got follow up with, Dent, maybe reaching S rank. Dawn and Serena and on screen may appeared, but Dawn and Serena appeared again. We didn't get to see that much though about their journey, how they're doing. Serena doesn't even bring up her contest. I mean, sorry, Dawn, which is interesting. She's Ash's first companion to get that close to reaching her goal. Uh, Serena's been doing very well in Johto, I guess, but that's all we really see. So that's the thing. We don't see as many people as we could, and we don't see much progression. There are exceptions. We saw Iris as a champion now, but we're talking about the good. I mean, the bad things not right now, not the good. Gotta take a whole point off for that, because we should have, honestly, we should have seen it. I'm also lumping in Ash's Pokemon who should have appeared when they should have. Bulbasaur should have appeared in that third episode I was talking about. And finally, last but not least, it's not to take up a whole nother point, but the last thing is the Masters 8 in general was rushed. We do have two of the best battles ever, but we have some of the worst battles ever for something at that level. That's not okay. So at the end of the day, I have to give the series a 6 out of 10. Here are some of the good things. We have some of the best battles ever, like Leon and Cynthia. Part 4 of Ash vs. Leon is one of the best ones ever. Um, I liked the idea that they traveled around to different regions, and when they did utilize it well, they did. I like that this is the series where we saw the most returning companions, and we would get some episodes that showed some progress, like Sophocles' goal, being an intern, working at a space station now. Um, I don't think it was enough to take off a point because I think the good out kind of cancels out the bad. I don't think Go was written in a way that should have been done. Go, like I said, should have from the get go been an experienced trainer, just need to fill up the Galar Pokedex, have some legendaries already, and then introduce the idea of Project Mew into it. Too many Project Mew's characters, aside from Tokyo and Gary, who we already really knew and didn't add much to his personality, weren't very fleshed out. But I did like the idea that they have a specific goal they have to do, and sometimes it involves being a really tough Pokemon, sometimes catching legendaries like the new Reggies. I also thought it did a lot for Go's character development and teamworking skills. When Go thought he wasn't going to get into Project Mew and he barely did, but he still felt down on himself, I thought that was the biggest letdown that a character had that had them grow since either not Serena, Dawn, when she lost the third time in a contest or didn't get to the second round, and she thought she would because she, started off very strong. She was the mother of a Grand Festival winner, or was Serena when the judge was very, very cruel and harsh to her, the old lady. Um, and I just thought that was really well done. Um, I mean, let's see. This is the series, warts and all, that did bring the idea of an end, like the Masters 8. I thought this was Team Rocket's second best series. The fillers I enjoyed more than the ones that I didn't, numerically. Like I said, the last two-thirds of Johto were some of the worst filler ever written, numerically too. Um, and we kind of didn't see that much of an improvement in Hoenn, for example. I remember disliking a lot more fillers in Unova, even Kalos, which is for many people the most beloved series. I think Kalos, Sinnoh, and Kanto are all tied for best series for different reasons. Different reasons. With Kalos, though, it was specifically, the overall thing, like the possible romance with Serena, Ash almost becoming champion. I don't want to harp on that too much. This is about Journeys. But with Kalos specifically, I have to say, that was something that was there. It was, in many people's opinions, the best series. So I feel like with this series, for it to have a returning character from there, such as Serena, I think it did a really good job keeping things rounded out and everything. Now, last but not least, I guess you know, as I had been saying, as far as fillers go, there were just so many more that I remember not disliking or thinking were good. This was a decent episode to see this week, like when they go to the park with the ancient Pokemon, things like that. And I like that they tried at least to do things a little differently. I like that they tried to have a character who was going to be a main character who, again, they'd done this before, didn't know what she wanted to do, and she wasn't necessarily a Pokemon attached to the hip character. I liked the whole idea with this goes back to their category, but the Team Rocket Radio thing. Um, and I think they did a good job just trying to make it so fellers weren't just Pokemon of the day. They tried new things. They tried new ideas. For example, I didn't even bring up Drake of the Elite Four from Hoenn, which they didn't bring this up. The only Hoenn Elite Four member Ash met and lost to. They never brought that up, actually. But he's there to mentor Ash and go for when they have to battle Kingdra and do something else for Project Mew. So the whole thing is, it was, they were just more good than bad. And I think one of the things about it is, just as we were let down with the Masters 8 in many ways at first, this is the series I was the most interested in. Like, going into Pokemon many years ago, didn't know what to expect. It was fine. I liked it. Kids WB really hyped up Johto. It's funny because years later, people loved the Orange League. People didn't at the time. I didn't have an issue with it. And I kind of had some warning signs because I've seen these pictures and summaries of not so great episodes after the first third airing in Japan. But people were excited going in for it. I was hopeful. Hoenn, I was actually excited because new animation and the plot looked more interesting. The gym battles were... Johto was when we started having good gym battles, but we continued to have very good gym battles that were getting more and more strategic, even better than ever. A girl companion who actually did something. Some of the fillers looked more interesting. Sinnoh, I was very burnt out with Ash not winning the Hoenn League and then not taking the post of Battle Frontier, but then losing to Gary. Why? And I didn't know Paul was an experienced trainer as much as Ash at the time, so I thought Paul was a newbie who beat Ash with an Elekid, the unevolved form of the thing that just beat Ash. And I actually stopped watching for 3 years. I was very disgusted. I had heard while I was gone that everything had gotten even better. Fillers were better, returning characters, very interesting plot. There were a few episodes that had nothing to do with the overall plot, but even small things like Paul's, what's his face? The evolved form of Grottle teaching Ashes, like small things like that. The whole Chimchar arc. There was a lot that pulled me back, and by the time I did watch it again with Sinnoh, watch the whole thing, it was a delight. Unova was on a high from Sinnoh. Going to Kalos, I was watching with people IRL, and I just found PokeTubers. And Kalos seemed promising because it, wasn't Unova, which I wasn't a big fan of. And I had people I was watching it with. Alola seemed terrible. To go into Alola, he's going to school. Look at this goofy animation. Oh, he just lost the Kalos League. This one was the one I have to say, though, where I was the most excited. Because the possibilities were so high. He's going everywhere he's already been. And of course they're not going to neglect Galar. We're definitely going to see Ash's old traveling companions. They bring this stuff up with Lily's family. More often than we did. This is going to be great, guys. Maybe some of Ash's old Pokemon will appear more. So just the hype of going into it. And of course the fandom. By then I had found most of the people I followed today. And I really think that was great. So, I know there are things I'm missing. But honestly, this video's already pretty long. For any of you who are still watching, thank you very much. Like I've brought up in other videos, I will actually have a plan as far as presentation for these videos and things like that. I know it's 2023. There's no excuse for a guy just be staring into a camera without the software really isn't there for me to really break it up into clipped areas with a very monotone voice. I just hope that you enjoy listening to videos that I make about something that you care about. I certainly care about them myself. So it's got to be a 6 out of 10. Really quick, though, to give you an idea, here are the episodes that, here are the series that had episodes that had a 10 out of 10, and Zach listed them. So 2 episodes for Kanto. One of them was Electric Shock Showdown, which for me is important. That's the first Pokemon episode I ever saw, and it was a great episode. Ash and Pikachu really bonding, taking down Surge. People say that's the first time we really earned a badge. And then Go as Yum Youth, of course, the classic where we show the stuff with Meowsy, Meowth learning how to talk, Orange Islands. Um, the Nidoran episode, which was fine, it was definitely one of the better fillers. Then Charizard chills. Yeah, Charizard listens to Ash. So that's 2 episodes. Johto, Charizard leaving. So that episode. The episode where Cyndaquil actually learns how to use its fire moves and doesn't have to, get pumped up, so it's able to battle better. And let's see, Ash beating Gary, part 2. Yeah, of course. 7 total. Um, so 4 for Kanto and Orange Islands. So if you're counting all the original series, Hoenn, which I remember very fondly, only had one 10 out of 10. So the episode where Max has the Ralts and they have to say goodbye, and it says, "Promise me, Max, you'll come back." It was a good episode. It was very touching. Battle Frontier, um, Charizard versus Articuno, of course. The time travel with May, the romance love with Meowth and her Squirtle coming along, that was very nice. And yeah, Ash being Brandon, of course. So again, Battle Frontier is its own thing, just 3, but as a whole, we have the original series having 7, and then this series having 4. Diamond Pearl, story plot wise, the best Pokemon series ever written as far as making a plot and character development. 9 here, guys. 9. So Ash getting Chimchar, that whole thing with the abuse that with Paul and everything. The episode Pika and Goliath will be revisit Pikachu fighting a Raichu, and harkens back to that first episode on the list. Last time the idea of it evolving with a stone gets brought up. The Wallace Cup, which is the first time we had something like a Masters 8 with contests, and it's with I wrote here in my notes that May won the Wallace Cup. I think it was Dawn, but whatever. First episode. Next one was first episode where Monferno goes crazy when it can't control its fire. No, it was still a Chimchar. Sorry about that. Part 2 where Paul beat Ash at the lake battle. One of the classics, should be somewhere near the top 10 if on there. Of course, the episode where Ash defeats Faulkner, one of the best battles ever. The episode where Gliscor ends up leaving to train. I remember liking the episode. I don't remember the details, but sure. Then last Grand Festival episode and Ash beating Paul. So there you go. One of the best rivalries ever. Black and White. I'm not the only one who didn't feel it was as strong as the series. So 4. Extra finally beats Iris. Yes, that's one of the better ones. The Meloette arc, one of those episodes. Yes, as far as big battles with a team group. I dare say this is about Team Rocket. I dare say this was better than the Team Plasma arc, and they're the real stars from those games. Charizard coming back, and then the last episode. That was one of the best episodes, is the feels, the touch of going off on a new journey and reflecting. Again, this is the episode where Ash thinks of all of his past traveling companions and rivals. Kalos, one of the 3 tied for best ever. 7. Ash being Karina. Yep, one of the best gym battles ever. The Jessie love story episode, she almost leaves, falling in love. One of the best Jessie episodes, Rocket episodes. Ash being Citron. Yep, one of the best gym battles. 7th badge, definitely also up there. Sawyer. Ash battling Sawyer. Yeah, one of the best battles ever. The episode with the Clembot died. I remember liking the episode. Some other PokeTubers not so much, but okay. And then the final episode, the Team Flare arc. Again, one of the best team group epic battle things. Well, I will say it was very epic to see. I know I keep saying epic. It was seeing all the gym leaders from Kalos come together to stop this threat of the world being destroyed. This wouldn't have just affected Kalos. But what's interesting about that is, I just gotta say it, right? It's very silly that the gym leaders and champions of other regions weren't there to save the world. I know the focus now is Kalos, but this franchise has shown they're not afraid of bringing it back people from other regions. So that is kind of silly, honestly. Alola, which was delightfully a surprise, it ended up being better than I thought it was going to be with the advertising, especially towards the end. It brought the feels. So the episode where Rockruff's buddy dies, that was a beautiful episode, one of the best ones ever. The episode where Brock and Misty come back and they get much better battles than Ash fought them the first time. Let's see. Where Lily gets over her phobia of touching Pokemon, which she saves Snowball. That was very good. What's her name? The girl with the green hair. It'll come to me, but when they talk about her mom dying, this was like the episode where Rockruff's friend died, but they're talking about the death of a human here. They don't usually do it that much. That was very well done. where Ash becomes champion, of course, um, which I thought was highly eclipsed by Ash being Kukui, which is my opinion probably the second best battle ever. Anyway, it was very well done. And then finally, this region got 10. So you've got 10 here. And let me be the first to point out something real quick. I remember this being tied. No, this does make it the series with the highest amount of episodes, even if it gets nothing else. Oh, I was thinking it was tied because if it had not gotten the 11 rating. But let's look at this real quick. Um, so we have the episode of Lance versus Leon. It was kind of a showcase. No, it wasn't. It was the year before, and Lance defended his title against Leon defended his title against Lance. It was an interesting battle. I don't remember too much. Just think it was good. Ash Ketchum and Riolu, yep, one of his strongest bonding. Riolu evolving to Lucario, like I said. Ash versus Cyrus, very good battle. Best comeback ever for a companion of Ash's. The Arceus episode, I don't remember liking the arc that much, but Zach gave it a part 3, 10 out of 10. That's fine. The episode where Lily finds her dad, second best episode of Pokemon ever. So yeah. Alola champion return, where everyone's cheering for him. The wrestling match, yep, showed the love for their champion. Ash versus Paul again. Yeah, I mean, did they? I don't know why I wrote it like that. I don't remember him battling Paul again. Um, Regardless, the episode where Paul is at Oaks Ranch, I thought that was good. Maybe they did fight. The whole point it wasn't to prove anything or go up a rank. It wasn't part of like the championship. Then finally, in 11 for Ash vs. Leon Part 4. Again, best episode ever for reasons I talked about. The reason I went through that is for a few things. If you haven't seen any of the episodes I brought up, just see them. They're all good for the whole franchise. But also, it goes to show this is the most polarizing series in this franchise. I have not seen some of the real hardcore dislike. Um, in fact, that's what my first video was. It was regarding two specific PokeTubers, and that's the last time I want to bring that up because I want there to be hard feelings. I actually a fan of theirs, like I said with one of them, the first person I ever followed with these things. But it's not so much I disagree with their opinions, but the reasons why they gave their opinions and my thoughts on that. But not just them, but specifically with them and other people. I feel like I brought up the Pokepod podcast. I still do overall, but I feel like at some point almost everyone on there really started hating on Journeys. It could never do anything right. It got to be too much to listen to for me because I don't have to always agree with someone, but I like to be able to agree with them more often than not if we agree we like the same thing. So most polarizing series that we've had so far. But if you look at that, it's got the highest amount of episodes that are 10 out of 10. And if you've seen those episodes, I think you'd agree. They're some of the best in the franchise. Two of the best in the whole franchise are on that list right there. But it does have its issues. So what I'll say is this. It's much better than the people that hate on it. For people to just say, no, Journey sucks, that's not true. It's not the best series, and that's the problem. I feel like at the end of the day, the reason it has to be a 6 instead of 6.5 is because of the same reasons I gave it a whole point. What it should have been, what we felt it was going to be going into it, what it could have been. And unfortunately, there are things that are going to come to mind. At this point, I really thought of all the bad things. There are going to be good things that come into this that I'm going to think about and maybe think later, oh, maybe I should put that in. But honestly, I think you get the point. I'm going to assume anyone watching this has probably seen a handful of episodes, and they get what I'm talking about when I'm talking about the things that are good, some are bad. Um, I guess two more things I'll bring up that really keep it up there with the points is Hoenn introduced the idea of Ash first training with his Pokemon for them to learn moves. They've kept that. And as far as his Pokemon, real quick, I guess I'll go through them. I brought up who they are. I feel like this team connection is one of the strongest we've had since his Sinnoh team. Um, Share your thoughts on that. Anyway, that's really about it. Gonna end it here. I hope you enjoyed.